Tonight's lead, the GOP's lawsuit backfires. Today, the absurd Republican plan to sue the president is already taking a toll on Republicans. We learned Speaker Boehner's announcement sent donations to Democrats skyrocketing. The Democratic campaign for Congress, the Congressional Campaign Committee to be exact, raised $584,000. That's the most it's raised in a single day this year. And today, Democratic lawmakers made clear they're not worried about this lawsuit, going right after Speaker Boehner saying his lawsuit won't stop action on immigration.
He's like shooting his parents and then throwing himself on the mercy of the court as an orphan. Pass a bill, and that won't happen. If they don't bring any bill to the floor, the president has no choice on a humanitarian basis and on a policy basis to act where he can on his own. This lawsuit is the latest laughable attempt for party leaders to appease a far-right fringe. That's never accepted this president as legitimate from the beginning. It started at Tea Party rallies with signs calling the president a Soviet-style dictator. Then the right-wing media ran with it.
I'm warning you, America. This is the sign of a dictator.
My next guest has decided to stand up to King Obama.
Executive order, one after the other, watching a dictatorship emerge in front of their eyes.
Knowing who he is, knowing the kind of authoritarian, quasi-dictator mentality he has.
Classy stuff. But over time, this language went from right-wings on the radio to right-wingers in Congress.
He's become a monarch or an emperor that can basically ignore the law and do whatever he wants.
The president seems to think that he is a monarch.
President Obama doesn't want to be bothered with the niceties of democracy and our constitutional system. He just wants to decree it.
He said that let's make this a year of action, and then he declared himself King Obama.
King Obama. He's a monarch, a dictator. This is the trend on the right. And now, Speaker Boehner is on board, writing in a memo about this lawsuit, quote, "We elected a president, we didn't elect a monarch or king." It could be straight from the 2010 Tea Party rally. But now it's coming from the highest-ranking Republican in the country. This lawsuit isn't working for the GOP. And watch out, pretty soon they might be suing themselves for damages to the party. Joining me now are Karen Finney and Crystal Ball. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us, Rev.
Karen, it didn't take long for this lawsuit to backfire on the GOP, did it?
No, it really didn't. I mean, in addition to the Democratic fundraising, I mean, I actually think that Democrats, we should say bring it on. If you want to bring on this lawsuit and this talk of impeachment, let's do that. Let's have that fight and let's have that argument. We want to argue about the fact that the president is trying to raise the minimum wage and trying to make sure women have equal pay and trying to do something about climate change. That's a fight I think we actually want to have, and I think that the Republicans, look, this may help them with their base, but even if, as you pointed out, it even kind of backfired on them on Fox yesterday.
No, it really did. And you know, Crystal, today Speaker Boehner, he sent out a tweet. I mean, it was almost comical. I mean, the quote was, "Americans deserve better, which is why House GOP remains focused on their priorities. Hashtag jobs and the economy." I mean, I guess he had to tweet it because he couldn't say it with a straight face today.
Well, I'm glad they're focused on it. I wish they would actually do something about it already. I mean, this is the man who is in charge of the House. This is the man, John Boehner, who could himself bring immigration reform to the House floor and vote on it, and it would pass tomorrow. But since he doesn't have the courage to do that, he's found ways to try and blame the president. And this latest way of doing that is by saying, well, we can't trust the president to be able to implement the laws. He's a dictator. He's a monarch.
Right.
He's lawless. We can't trust him. It's really a crutch and an excuse for the GOP's own inaction. And what's ironic here is it's that very inaction and obstruction that has forced the president's hand to do what he can through his executive powers.
And then you have in the Senate, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz keeping up these ugly attacks, going after Attorney General Eric Holder, the IRS. Listen to this, Karen.
If Attorney General Eric Holder continues to refuse to appoint a special prosecutor, he should be impeached. When an attorney general corrupts the Department of Justice by conducting a nakedly partisan investigation to cover up political wrongdoing, that conduct by any reasonable measure constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors.
I mean,
wow. I mean,
Ted Cruz has jumped the shark with this. Come on, let's be serious. I mean, look, I just want to make one point because this goes to what Crystal was talking about. I think there's two parts to this, right? We shouldn't forget that one part of this whole strategy is all about undermining the legitimacy of the Obama presidency and how whatever cabinet member they can use to do that, to attack the president. That's part of going after Holder. That was part of going after Sebelius. So I think let's remember that part of this is truly about attacking this president and his legitimacy. Number two, I mean, you know, what Ted Cruz is not reminding the American people is, let's talk about the last time Republicans tried, impeached a president, and after a $70 to $80 million expenditure of an investigation that then led to an impeachment of the president. And I seem to remember that president's numbers went skyrocketing because it pointed out to the American people that the Republicans are too often willing to go too far. They get too drunk on power. And in this case, I think certainly you try to impeach or you try to sue. And as Crystal pointed out, what it points out is what's not getting done in Congress.
But there's one big difference, is at least there was an allegation. At least there was something to try and make impeachable. In this regard, they don't even have an allegation, Crystal. This is all imaginary, just reaching in thin air. And they ask, I'll give you the best example. They raised the question to Speaker Boehner, what is the specifics of your lawsuit? Let the Speaker speak for himself.
Speaker Boehner, what specific executive action or actions are you planning to challenge in court?
When I make that decision, I'll let you know.
I mean, doesn't that say it all? You're threatening a lawsuit with the President of the United States saying that his executive actions undermines the Congress. And when a reporter says, what specific executive actions are you using in the lawsuit, he says, when I make that decision, I'll let you know. I mean, how can you take these people seriously?
That is unreal. He doesn't have a single specific example. It just shows you how nakedly political this is. And I think, look, John Boehner, he just watched Eric Cantor get defeated in a big way in a primary, totally unexpectedly. He's looking at the situation. He's saying, I got to keep the Republican Party together. I got to keep my hold on power. Going against the president, calling sort of elusively or sort of alluding to the fact that he's lawless or may deserve to be impeached. That's a winner with the base. That's something I can do that'll get folks behind me. So it's just nakedly political way to try to keep his party together when the only thing they can agree on is opposition to the president.
But the other thing that it does, and this is why I wanted to lead with this tonight. Sure. The other thing this does, Karen, as I said when I opened, a year ago today, the Senate passed immigration. A year later, they've done everything in the House but deal with the immigration issue and other issues. People are suffering while they're playing these games, while they're engaging in all kinds of distraction and political theater.
Well, that's exactly right, Reverend, and that's why I said at the beginning, I think Democrats should welcome this fight. If the Republicans really want to have this fight, let's have this fight, but then let's make sure that we are aggressively, proactively making the exact case and the exact point that you just made. I'd like to see every Republican House member, and particularly members of the Senate, where I actually think this strategy could backfire on senators who actually have to bring in some moderate Republicans who are going to think this whole thing is ridiculous. But let's have that fight, and let's let the Republicans defend why they're spending time and taxpayer dollars on a lawsuit while people are suffering, as you point out, while unemployment insurance extension is not getting done, while immigration reform is not getting done.
Veterans who defended this country can't even get unemployment insurance extended. We can't sit by and allow them to just keep distracting us. Crystal Ball and Karen Finney, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rev.
Be sure to watch Crystal on The Cycle weekdays at 3 p.m. Eastern at MSNBC.